Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome all the participants who are joining today for the session. I heartily welcome our speaker, Dr. Ravindra Kumar Dwivedi, our principal investigator, Dr. Varinder Garg, our co-principal investigator, Dr. Harish and Dr. Surinder Rana, Dr. Sakshi from UIT, and all the coordinators from our Brain Trust Institute. Today, we have a session named Robotics and Automation, a New Path Provision in Healthcare. This session will give you insights how robots in medicine help by relieving medical personnel from routine tasks that take their time away from more pressing responsibilities, and by making medical procedures safer and less costly for patients. So before we start the session, I would like to play one video of C.R. Bayati. Please have a look. Thank you for watching this video. Now I am going to introduce our incubation center, Center for Innovation and Biodesign. It is the platform funded by ICMR and situated in PGI, Chandigarh. It promotes innovation in medical devices and instruments by creating a conductive ecosystem with involvement of multiple primary technology institutes in collaboration with PGI. India has achieved a tremendous amount of progress in the field of IT. However, we are still lagging behind areas of innovation and research in healthcare that led to an escalation of cost of healthcare delivery in the country. The ICMR CIYD aims to fill in these voids in innovation and research in Indian healthcare sector. Now, the objectives of CIYD are innovation in medical devices and other branches of healthcare, automated solution to various health-related problems. It provides manpower training, and it is also a consultancy center providing solutions to hospitals and various medical areas. Now, I'm going to introduce our session short-term attachment program. This program is organized mainly for young and bright students who want to polish their skills to get involved with cutting-edge health-related technologies. The main objectives of this program are learning about innovation, incubation, prototyping, clinical validation, and commercialization of novel ideas in affordable and scalable healthcare. Primary areas of learning for the benefit of the overall society. Personal interaction program with the expert from all the domains of medtech industry. It also provides opportunity to work on the development of prototypes with the expert team. Now, I would like to invite Aishwarya to please introduce our speaker, Dr. R.K. Dwivedi.
Hello everyone, I am Aishwarya. I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Ravindra Kumar Dwivedi. He is currently serving as an associate professor at Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology in Patiala. His graduation was from Bain College of Engineering and Technology in Production Engineering at Gurdaspur, while he earned his master's in CAD/CAM and robotics and his PhD in his field of 5-axis CNC machine from TI. His core research interest lies in engineering drawing, CAD/CAM, robotics, and industrial automation. Dr. Dwivedi has successfully completed his 5 research and infrastructure projects that have been approved by our Government of India. There are 11 papers published in SCI journals and 9 papers published in reputable international and national journals by his name. In 2016, he was honored by the Indian National Academy of Engineers with the Innovative PhD Project Award, and followed by this, he also received a postdoctoral fellowship from the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. We welcome you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, am I audible?
Audible.
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, so let's start with the session. Thank you for the nice description. Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Just a second. Just a second. Okay, is it visible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, basically today's session is about, something about introduction to robotics and how it serves us in healthcare systems in various ways, like directly from surgery to assisting, in various ways. So definitely nowadays, because of COVID, such automation devices are in dire need. And the way I used to give example to my students that to build a castle, either some few manpower can spend their years and years of labor, or else like all of us together, if we just add few bricks, like some contribution per day, maybe in few days we can transform the entire society and we can build something very big. So similarly, all of us like should take some lead in assisting people create these devices, and some people can directly get involved in making these devices. So the collaboration from engineering to medicine, that can take us to a good position. May not be very close to the developed nation very soon, but to a comfortable place. So basically my lecture is about what is robotics history and some applications. So we will discuss some part of it. So basically when we talk of robotics, it's basically originated from some word in Czech, which means robota, forced labor or drugly or something. And then some people later on wrote some fiction novels around it, like in 1992, sorry, 1920, where the term robotic that was used, and then robotics term was later on used in 1942 by Russian scientists. And then there's a history that somebody came out with a patent in 1962 or somewhere close to that, using NC technology. So there the robotics, or those devices which look like human arm, they came into existence. So basically, if we go and talk about what is the precise definition of robot, which is one of the element of automation industry, or maybe the automatic devices. So this is a programmable, multifunctional manipulator. So we do not call it a machine because there are various joints like our own elbow, shoulder, and wrist joints, which can manipulate themselves independent of other joints, and we can do some task which is at hand, like pick and place, some operation like spray painting and all those applications, which then later on got extended to medical field by use of haptics, where we can make those joints responsive. We can also sense that what is the amount of force which is being passed on, and which is also being sensed by the joint, and it can be the person who is handling those devices can be made to realize those things. So they can assist in telemedicine, like remote surgery, digital surgeries, and various applications. So basically, nonetheless, most of the industrial robots, they look like some single human arm, either left-handed operated or right-handed operator, and we can have couple of those, like in robotic surgery nowadays, being used. So we have this device which can also be programmed and reprogrammed, and it can be used to do a lot of tasks the way our hand is able to accomplish using our arm and the forearm. And it is it is basically a specialized operation which governs the utility of the robot. So there are variable program motions. So basically we try to program the robot in a way that based upon the required speed of the hand at which it should move. So the various links should be actuated in an integrated way that the precision of motion, the speed of the operation, the locational accuracy, all those things can be maintained. So basically, if we go by definition of robot, it is just a simply reprogrammable multifunctional manipulator. So there is a history, like there was some fascination created by Hollywood about like robots of this shape, that shape, this application, some humanoid forms, and then some robots which appeared like humanoid, and they can be programmed and they can accomplish operations which look more or less similar to what a human being can do. So like Terminator. So these things also later on, people worked on these, and then Asimov and other robotic devices, we'll just discuss, they came up subsequently. So if we want to call something a robot, right, it is basically like the device must be able to sense and perceive information from its surrounding, carry out different tasks, right, like locomotion, manipulation, and then it should be reprogrammable, and it should be functionally autonomous. So, and the best part for nowadays, like industry 4.0 or med 4.0, what we call, and the next level of industry 5.0, where the robots are not to be put into the cages that they work in a distant place. They should be put in the workplace where the human beings work, and then they can interact with the human being, and we can avoid a robot to get hurt, and also like robot do not create any injury to the human being. So there is like the force sensitive robots, they are already there deployed. Like I heard there's a company called Universal Robotics who have deployed 50,000 such robots which are industry 5.0 level compliant just last year. So these are some early development in robotics. Like this is the crude robot, like developed in 1970s from Puma. and they had several series, 400, 500, 7 series for 4, 5, 6, 7 axis, 6 axis generally. These robots, they were used mostly for machine loading operations, pick and place operations, spray painting, other operations which are repeated, and we required high degree of accuracy and repeatability, that they keep on working all day just to save on the cost and human labor. So some application which are still like the use of robotics in medical industry is not as big as it is in the industrial applications like welding, the palletizing operation. Here you can see in this robot, like this is interacting with the machine, so machine loading, unloading operations. So like we have removed the operator, and this robot can work probably with several other machines, some material transfer devices. And here there is a transfer line, robot is working from both sides, and the car is subsequently moving to the next station. So at every station there are a couple of robots from upside, from left and right side, they're working. And they are working in a strong integration. The accuracy of operation is very high, the speed of operation is very high, and the consistency, reliability, and the per day number of operation, those could be accomplished without incurring some accidents and all those kind of things. That is very, very good using robotics. And so there's a company, for some of you would like to see the applications, there's a KUKA robot which is very famous for industrial applications. So, and then mobile manipulators. So basically robot now doesn't remain stick to the anthropomorphic applications like human arm applications. We have mobile robots, we have aerial unmanned surveillance robots, UAVs we call, and then drones and all those things, which can be like independently programmed, and they can independently operate for a while. So all those devices, automation devices, can be called robot. Here you can see this robot is on the mobile platform, plus simultaneously it has got two left and right hand arm. And then there are some devices which are aerial robots, humanoid robots, wheeled mobile robots, legged robots, underwater robots. So there's a company in California which develops the robots for underwater exploration, where the robot can go deep. I heard something even close to 1.5 kilometer down. And these are robots which were used in a rescue operation, I think 2 years back, when some people were stuck in India in some mines and there was some water logging, something like that. So there's a legged robot. Some people, they have started using them as pets, and they are also being used in some competitions, and some competitions like the robots can play football and kind of things. These are the robots which legged robots, which the application is from Boston Robotics, where you would have seen some robot which is appearing like a horse, or you can say like dog, which can move over the stairs. He can jump and he can roll over kind of things. And then there are some industrial robots which are used in nuclear reactor and some other applications for material transfer, and also in the warehouses. So these are the mobile platform robots. They can sense the things in the surrounding. They have vision cameras, they have infrared cameras, they have some ultrasonic attachments, and these robots can be moved along the programmed path, or they can also self navigate, and they can also be remotely controlled. And similarly, you would have seen like the best example which is known to many people around is the NASA and JPL Mars exploration robot. So there's a company called iRobots. The fellow who has that company, the owner of that company, or the CEO of that company, is the one who did his masters and created some algorithm way back in the early 80s or 90s. I'm not sure, like 80s it should be. So his algorithm was the one which was used to create or develop the entire platform, right, for NASA exploration robot, so Mars rover. And there are some applications which are like the military applications, where you can create some device or the robotic devices for launching into the like enemy territory. You can get some visualization about their activities, and you can navigate through some narrow paths to plant certain devices into the different locations where you feel that sending a human being would be very unsafe. And we have some tanks and armored vehicles also of the high capabilities, which can also be remotely programmed, and they can also be called robotics. So these are the applications which some people may have explored at their homes, like Lego Mindstorm kits, these kits where some students, like the not very famous in India, but in all schools in Germany and UK, and of course UK, people start in their early years, like fifth, seventh class, that they develop some robots and they play around these things. And of course, they can also do it for some domestic applications. So this is a cheetah robot I was talking about. Like this can have the motion of all these the legs independent, and it can move, it can run, it can jump over the things, it can climb the stairs. So such kind of robotic devices, they are also becoming very common. So but the issue is with the battery, because the weight of the entire system is too high. So if we have some very good quality batteries, so it can also be like I saw somebody using these kind of like a horse to pull his cart. And then humanoid robots, we have seen a couple of these even during COVID. So they were assisting in various hospitals for the facial recognition, or the capturing the data of the people entering the facility, and also like taking some parameters like temperature and other things, which could be captured using some sensors on the robot. And that entire data can be put into the system before we allow somebody to enter the facility for further medical examination. And of course, restaurants, they were also like a good customer for such kind of technologies. Then these are the manipulators, which can of course be used for surgery and for assistance of the robot. Like they can be planted and they can just pick up and the things in a sequence and hand it over to the doctor. And of course, these devices, they also can be remotely controlled by some doctor, and he can perform the surgeries in a controlled environment from remote locations. So these applications of course, like they're not very widely uh, available as of date, but people have achieved quite a success in deploying these kind of applications. So wheeled robot, these are the ones which can be used in army applications. Of course, we ourselves created some devices for Seaboyd for delivery of the food and medicine, and remotely interact with the patients in the isolation wards. So we developed two of such devices. So basically, if we go by classification, so the bigger chunk of application of robotics or the automation devices, like in fact, like if we talk of Industry 4.0, which is the new norm for automated industries or the automated shop floors, or in fact like MED 4.0, which is there for automation devices for hospitals or medical applications. So we have an integrated environment where we have IoT enabled platforms which capture the data of the device. They keep a track of everything functioning okay. The application, the tracking, the mobility, and of course the precision accuracy which the robot is intended to perform, so that performance is being done. So there's a platform which is IoT enabled, which interacts with the remote server and make sure that the AI algorithms, whatever data is sent or received, all those things, they happen in real time. And any unsafe operation or some emergency requirement on part of the device can also be assessed in real time. So devices are also, they are developed like cobots, which are other new terminologies for the robots who interact with the human being on the shop floor, or in fact in the medical applications. So those robots, they have their actuators, or their limbs are actuated using motors or the devices which are force sensitive. So there is no like those robots don't cause any harm if the human being works in that vicinity. So it is always safe. So And then we have automation devices which integrate the environment for material transfer from one location to another location. So various things from computer algorithms to the electronics to the sensors to the IoT to the mechanical performance to the force sensitive actuators, all this technology put together makes the things which we see, nowadays. So in the meantime, I'll show you a small video where the robots are being used for surgical applications. Let me see if I have got that right with me here. Okay, so this is here. I'll come back to this slide little later. So share screen, share. So can you see my screen now? The new screen with Da Vinci written on it. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay.
And intuitive motion control enable the Da Vinci surgeon to transcend the limitations of conventional surgical technologies. Network components comprise the Da Vinci surgical system, an ergonomic surgeon's console, a patient-sized cart with 4 interactive robotic arms, and a high-definition 3D vision system. Seated at the console, the Da Vinci surgeon views a remarkably clear 3D image of the surgical field. The system scales, filters, and translates the movements of the surgeon's hands on the master controllers to 4 interactive robotic arms on the patient cart. The precisely controlled micro movements of the Da Vinci instruments are enabled by the computer processors of the system. These dedicated processors perform millions of safety surgical precision and control. Da Vinci EndoWrist instruments are designed with a unique wristed architecture that provides 7 degrees of freedom for range of motion greater than even the human wrist. This proprietary design enables surgical maneuvers impossible with conventional laparoscopic tools. The system requires that every surgical maneuver is under the direct control of the surgeon. Redundant safety checks prevent autonomous movement of the instruments or the robotic arms. The Da Vinci S surgical system moves surgery forward with a new level of technical capability that enables minimally invasive and complex procedures as never before. Da Vinci provides a streamlined surgical experience that benefits the hospital, the surgeon, the OR team, and, most importantly, the patient.
So also have one more good thing to share with all of you. Just a second. So can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So this device or like this application which I'm trying to show is for this is called digital surgery, which involves the similar thing, the way Da Vinci is being used. So Da Vinci robot is this is a classic example which probably got developed over about 15 years, and I know one professor who makes use of that robot herself, right? So at one of the hospitals. So Stanford has put a lot of effort developing these like a Da Vinci robot. This robotic arm having like 4 robotic arm, and the entire platform which is haptic based. So doctor is not directly operating on the patient. So this device is basically primarily developed for remote surgeries, where somebody will set up the system for the doctor, which is trained enough, but the highly skilled doctor, he can operate from anywhere around the globe through a good internet connectivity, and then he can visualize also what is happening. He can control all the movements as if he's directly doing it with his own hands. So like in this way, like we can save a lot of traveling time of the doctors, and they can get involved into like performing surgeries rather than just spending their time in the airports. So they can undertake like the highly skilled operations from remote locations. That was the intent of creating the Vinci robot. So in the same line, this is a company which has developed this application, which I'm just trying to share with you. So this is 1 minute video. Let's see this.
So sorry to interrupt, but the volume isn't sufficient for us to listen.
Just a second. Actually, this is just a background music. I'm trying to share my computer sound. Okay. Now I think it should be okay. Is it okay now?
Yes.
So basically, if you see this device, right, or this application, this makes use of the some vision system for performing the surgery, right, remotely. And this has got secure online library of apps for in fact like making student train on the various aspect of the surgeries on various issues, and digitize how your team review and learn, and automate analysis of the surgery, and powered by artificial intelligence and smart computing. So basically the automation technologies which are being used for hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me stop sharing this. So these technologies are basically the one which take us to the next level, where we can incorporate directly the number of devices to assist us in various medical applications and other applications as well. So let's get back to the presentation. Just a second. Right. So we have basically whatever, like we may have 4 human arm kind of applications which are used in the Da Vinci, or we may have a single manipulator arm for surgery, or like or for some assistance, or maybe for manipulation of the camera, the way some people have used the devices for the welcome robots, or like the devices which are the front reception and at the hospitals. So the anthropomorphic feature is the one which is there, and it should be manipulator, which is making use of some electromechanical devices or the actuators which are using the various limbs move, and then the end effector basically, or the hand, interacts with the external environment to perform the required task. So these are the basic definitions which we can go past, and then there are 3 laws which generally we follow to design a robotic arm, which are that it should not injure the human being through inaction or allow the human being to come to harm. Our robot must obey the orders given by the human beings, like the way we have programmed it should act according to that, and it should not go beyond. So except where such orders should conflict with this first law, so which we build in using the computer algorithm, so that those checks and balances can be maintained, that the robot doesn't strike itself, it doesn't unnecessarily try to reach beyond its limits and strike the various other auxiliary devices which are in the vicinity where we try to use a robot, and a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second law. So all in all, like there is also called a zeroth law, which like it says that a robot may not injure humanity or through inaction allow humanity to come to harm. So though like the applications which are for military use, like and rehabilitation, so those things are still coming up, but definitely they are still in the good hands, so they just save the humanity from there. So basic application of the robots is like the dangerous, dirty, like dull, difficult, and of course repetitive tasks, and the one nowadays which are more expensive to be carried out with a human being. And in fact, if you talk of the industry 4.0, industry 5.0 compliant, so the robot should be able to work with the human being in close interaction, right? And the sequence of operation and the workspace should be so safe that just touching the robot, it stops and it starts following its path thereafter, having sense that the human being is not there. So this require a whole lot of integration, of course, vision system, the force sensors, the AI algorithms, the lot of knowledge base where using which the robot would be initially programmed, and the initial capabilities, the compliance, which are like the energy compliance and all those things, and easy disposal of those devices which after their useful life can be easily disposed of. So generally we use the robots or these automation devices to basically increase the product quality or the quality of the operation if we talk with respect to the medical applications, right? So the consistency can be retained. So there can be a good day, a bad day, right, for a medical practitioner when like he's not as energetic, and someday like he's extra energetic, and just to retain the the competency level to a anticipated benchmark. So we can control through the gesture controlled robots, the way you have seen in the Da Vinci. So even if something tries to slip from the hand of the doctor, but the robot will not allow it to slip, right? So all those things, all those checks and balances, they are put with a good care from the compliant agencies, that all the operations, all the design features, they are all ensuring that the highest quality performance could be achieved. So efficiency enhancement, increase in the safety, the reduction in the cost of the operation or whatever activity you would like to get performed, and reduced manufacturing lead time. So lead time is basically the time when you start the operation and when it ultimately gets accomplished. So this lead time, right, can be minimized using the robotic and automation devices. Of course, increased productivity. So the per day value addition, right, or the per unit time value addition could be enhanced, and people can make better life, like spending less time on work and more time on the self development. So this is a plot which is zone of industrial application. Basically, similarly we could have this plot for the medical application, which is just rising, and we have robots which are, if you just use it for the large production volumes, so the cost of investment can also be easily recovered. And the example which I gave for the cobots, which are the highest development so far. So I heard one of the gentlemen saying that the payback period of the robot is less than 1 year, which is far beyond the expected trend in the industry, where generally 4 to 5 years are there. So then we have some history. I'll try to skip, like the robotic development was basically for some industrial applications to automate. So initially they were mechanical automation, and then just starting with the 1961, where the George C. Devol, right, he got the first US patent on robotics, which is the patent number 2998237. And then subsequently, because the MC technology, the numeric control technology, all those computer technology integration with the remote things, the CNC, DNC, the number of things came, and then subsequently with the advent of the technology and the computer technology becoming cost effective over a period of time, in the storage technology and some AI and then haptic applications development took the entire system to the very next level, which is totally way beyond. So if we just talk of such kind of robot, like if somebody develops it nowadays, it would be called like the primitive age robot. But the things evolved from here, but not so far like back in the history. uh they have picked up like very high next level, so we have very high HD and high range cameras and all those things. So this is the Stanford cart, which was like on the mobile platform. So they tested it that the autonomous vehicle, the so people may say that the autonomous vehicle development, like Google and some other companies, they are trying to do, and there's a company called Alpha also. So these kind of technology development, right, in the laboratories, it started way back in 70s. Okay, so it's not the day's task. There are n number of things which slowly got refined, and then they're getting added up. And then we have some cars and some technologies which like Tesla claims that self-parking vehicles and other things. So we have humanoid robot which can walk like human being, avoid obstacle. It can bypass some obstacle on the floor. It can have a vision sensor. It can also interact. And then there are also version of this. So the like Honda is still working on it. And then we have this Pathfinder, which was sent on the Mars. So now you see the technology which is used to maneuver the wheels on the ground. So this chassis is is having every wheel independently working, right? So there are actuators which are making them rotate. There are actuators which are making these limbs keep this upside platform stationary or oriented in a particular orientation, even though the robot is working on different rough or plain terrain. So all these technologies put together, right, they have taken us even like to create such kind of devices. And these are the toy robots which can jump, which can roll over, and which can be used and programmed, the but of course, like they also quite sophisticated in terms of their development. So in fact, like the aerial vehicles, unmanned aerial vehicles, and those drones and those technologies which we see, like, so we have various actuation systems which like roll, pitch, and yaw. These motions, they can be independently controlled by making the rudder or the wings, right, just change their position according to the velocity with which it is moving. So all those technologies, like how the actuators are going to move which part of the device and how it is going to take the shape, so all those testing technologies, they're still getting involved, but of course they have also reached quite a good level. So the degree of freedom of robot is basically as many number of independent motion we can have. So say for example, on our human body, if we just stand, so we have shoulder, sorry, like starting from the waist, once we freeze our feet on the ground, so we have waist which can rotate about the vertical axis. Okay, and then we have shoulder which can go up and down. This is another degree of freedom. So of course shoulder has got 3 degrees of freedom. It can roll over, it can move left, right, it can move back and forth. And then elbow, which works only in one direction. And then there is a wrist which can move in various directions. It can roll over, it can have pitch motion, it has yaw motion. And then of course, like beyond wrist, in robotics we have special tools. So hand is kind of a tool which is given by nature to us. And instead of like different attachment at the wrist, we can have a spray painting gun, we can have a surgical knife, we can have hand for the stitching operations and kind of things. And some pen or marker, some tool, some welding torch. So generally whatever robot are designed, they are designed specially up to the wrist. So the load carrying capacity, the position accuracy, the speed of operation, the other features, right, and the force sensitivity, the load carrying capacities, all those things, they're defined up to the wrist. And beyond wrist, we have prosthetics, which is totally different area, but still allied to the robotics, where people have developed humanoid hand application things, two simple sliding gripper, and many other tools, the way we have seen in the Da Vinci, so which can be mounted on the wrist. So generally for a robot, when we select it, the degrees of freedom are the ones which are up to the wrist. Something which is getting attached beyond the wrist, we consider it a minor degree of freedom. And those kind of degrees of freedom, they can be very, very specialized, like 20 degrees or 21 degrees of freedom human hand, or 7 degrees of freedom hand for Da Vinci. So here you can see there's a robot which is having some vision system, and it is separating the white and the black balls. So color recognition and all these things can be done. So we have basically another terminology which works with the robotics, is that what is the space around which the robot would be able to move. So if we see ourselves that when we are sitting, our hand cannot move everywhere. It can move something, from a position something close to our chest to a maximum reach position when the arm is fully extended. So we cannot go beyond the maximum fully extended arm position. We cannot penetrate ourselves, but within which, like this range, we can have the very good consistency when we are working close to our body. And when we have arm fully extended, then we may not be able to perform as good as in case of when we are performing close to our body, like the workspace which is just in front of our chest. So there are some positions within the total workspace which are of very high interest to us, and we look for those, and where the hand can manipulate itself in n number of directions with the sufficient distance along XYZ direction. So the overall, what is the position in space about within which the robot is able to work, is the workspace. So when we select a robot, we do take care of it, that we need a smaller robot or larger robot, and then the position, whether it can execute some straight line motions or curvilinear motions, right? And then the orientations, right? The robot is working from tabletop position, or it is to be mounted on the rooftop, or it is to be wall mounted, and what is the orientations, right? And of course the orientations of its own linkages also. And then like say for example, our wrist works generally when elbow always gets folded towards the table, but we design the robots which work upside down, right? Which has the elbow of the robot pointing upside compared to the table, so that if there are some bins and something else on the table, the robot elbow doesn't strike, the way I've shown in the Puma robot. So the middle joint axis was kind of like centrally upside. So we have links which are mechanical connectors, and the joints where the two links are connected, and we have an actuator which provides the motion. Like the elbow or the shoulder is a joint, and the forearm and the upper arm is the link. So we have a motion here. So muscles give energy here. So here's like, if we have a mechanical system, we need to put a motor here, right? Or the motor may be put at the base, but there may be some chain or some belt drive system which will make the two things move with relative to each other. So this would be frozen, and the upper arm can be moved, right? So something similar to this can be executed. So speed of operation, we can just touch upon the load bearing capacity I just talked of. And then there is the primary objective is that we have a robot which should be able to work with the required accuracy. So what is the accuracy and repeatability? I will just touch upon that. Accuracy is that we always have some target discrete location in space for in the digital technology. We cannot move like in analog technology that everywhere in the workplace robot would be able to move. So those discrete locations may be as close as possible, like 1 micron. They can be 1 mm or half mm apart from each other. But once they are defined, ideally, the robot, when it is commanded to move to or maneuver through those positions, it should be able to do that. So if the robot is targeted to go to this location, which is a target location, say, for example, this is a small discrete location in space within the workspace of the robot. So if it goes there or stays very close to it, we will say that it has got very high accuracy. And if it stays away from the target location, but not too far, because there are some other sensors may not be as precise, but it stays away from the target location. So here the accuracy is relatively less. Here the accuracy is better. So this is a relative definition. And then if we target our robot to move n number of times to a given position, so it's if all the time it stays very close to the targeted location, we will say that it's quite repeatable. The repeatability or the reliability is better. But if it haphazardly moves left, right, at several positions, we may say the repeatability is poor and accuracy may also be poor. So Then we have, the various end effectors, the tools which we put onto the wrist, right? So wrist may have up to 6 degrees of freedom. We may have shoulder, we may have the waist, we may have elbow, we may have then minor degrees of freedom, which are called yaw, pitch, and roll at the wrist. And then at the wrist plate, we mount the tool, which may be a hand, sophisticated, with the n number of fingers, independently able to move that, and some gripper, which has just 2 sliding fingers. And in fact, there could be other tools and things which can be mounted, mechanical grippers, vacuum, magnetic grippers, adhesive hook scoops, and spot welding, arc, spray painting, rotating, and n number of applications for various things, like some vision sensors for UAVs, some touch sensors, or some other ultrasonic sensors for mine detecting robots. uh, 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 for say temperature sensing, we may have a laser gun mounted, right? And a laser sensor. And of course, like for medical, we may have a scissor, we may have a some other applications, right? Or maybe a camera, or maybe some catheter, or whatever tube or passage, right? Whatever to be used. So there can be n number of applications, but all those would require a small tool to be mounted at the robot wrist. So of course, like the spatial resolution, the accuracy and repeatability. The spatial resolution is like how close those small discrete location within the workspace are there, through which the robot can move. So the good, more they are close, the better is the accuracy and repeatability. And then we will talk of not these terms. This is one term where I discuss, like there can be several. Let's say this is a target location. When each time robot is sent to its different from different positions to that command position, if it stays away and all the time it reaches different positions, so it is neither accurate nor repeatable. But if we have all the time robot reaching the similar positions very close to its target location, it is repeatable as well as accurate. Here it is not as accurate but quite repeatable. Here the accuracy is not good but the repeatability is good. Here neither the repeatability or the accuracy is better, but these are relative terms. There is always a sphere of influence within which the robot has to remain, because the sensors are there. The moment the robot moves too far away from the target location, the controller, the robot controller would be required to act and bring back the robot near or in the close vicinity of the target locations using the feedback control system. So that is always there. There are different types of joints in the robot which are mechanically used. So we can have the linear motions, we can use the piston cylinder arrangement, we can have hydraulic systems for the larger robots, we can have the rotary joints where the axis is there perpendicular to both the links and this can swivel left and right. We can have this kind of motion for a cylindrical motion where the tool one end can move relative to the other one up and down as well as it can swivel. We can have a spherical joint where it can swivel like a ball in the socket to various orientations. And we can have a twisting where the two links are having common axis but they can just swivel like in the cylindrical here. So there are different classifications based upon the drive technology, where like the power source, either we use electrical, mechanical, or pneumatic. Physical configuration can be Cartesian. We can discuss this. These are the electrical technologies. We can use different kind of actuators: hydraulic, pneumatic, stepper motors, servo motors, or the muscle wires, or the DC motors, or the hydropneumatics, or electrical actuators, or the pneumatic motors. Pneumatic motors, we just apply the compressor and then they rotate, but used for high RPM operations where the torque requirement is also less. So these are the various configurations physically, generally, which we based upon which we can configure the robot and say that which configuration it is. So the first one is basically the Cartesian, right? This is the Cartesian one where the robot can linearly move. It can move up and down, it can move left and right, it can move back and forth. These three directions of motions, they are linear as well as they are perpendicular to each other. So this is the Cartesian. This is also similar to one of the milling machines, which if some of you knows what is that. Then cylindrical, where one of the joint can move up and down along this vertical link, as well as it can also move about this link. And then there is also one translatory axis here, or the linear motion here. And then there's a polar, like the upper part here, it can swivel about this vertical axis and then it can roll over about the horizontal axis, rotate about this, and then there's an arm which can move back and forth. Like in the automated cranes, we can see this kind of example. And then there's a jointed arm, which where I said that like shoulder joint, elbow joint, and the waist joint is there, right? So this is a representation where the about vertical axis we can move about the waist, and then shoulder can move up and down the upper arm, and then the lower arm can be moved with the help of elbow up and down. And in fact, like if you want to have integrated motion, that this point moves back and forth. So all these three joints would be moved simultaneously together with different value of the displacement, angular displacement. So we can actuate and do the task. And the SCARA is a robot which is used in electronics industry very frequently for high speed operations. And then the mobile robots. I'll just quickly come to some applications which I have figured out for us for today's discussion. So, the robot, like they can also be, to semi-automatic devices to assist in manual handling of the devices. They can be fixed sequence robot, like we know that where to pick and where to place, like the industrial robots in cement industries or in some other packaging industries. So there can be some robots, right, which can be used for variable sequence of operation. Like you may have a conveyor on which the parts are received in various orientations. We need to stack them in a particular orientation. So we can have variable sequence of operation. Right. So is it visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then playback robot, we can use the our hand and program the robot that it is the profile along which you should work. Okay. And then that all those positions and the speeds they get recorded in the controller, and then we can make it move all the time. And in fact, the Da Vinci is the highest extent of playback robot, where the doctor is simultaneously doing something. He's also feeling what is happening on the other side. So say when we pierce through something, so there is a small amount of force which our fingers in the hand experience, and we become very conscious not to penetrate with a high force, or in fact in certain cases when the needle doesn't penetrate, we exert a little bit for a small while. So all those small forces, they can also be experienced by the doctor, which is not directly touching the patient. So that is another highest extent of this kind of robot. So here you can see these applications, and numeric control robots where we program it and we just let leave, and then hard program is being followed, like cutting and welding and soldering operations. So there are intelligent robots where they can also make some of the decisions themselves, that there is some unique thing which is not programmed, but what to do in certain situations like this. So we may use AI, NN, or fuzzy logic, right? Genetic algorithms. So like, those robots, they can make use of these algorithms. So we can have seen, I forgot the name of the robot which started speaking, like the speaking robot that I think it was named Fatima or something. Then these are the robot applications. There are n number of applications in defense, right? So these are all defense applications. These are service robots, like the warehouse robots, shop floor cleaning robots. Nowadays, people, they have started using even home cleaning robots, and then the robots for electric charging, or just positioning the petrol or the diesel nozzle for refilling. And then the robots for some cleaning operations, right, for some orthopedic surgery, right? And then robots for manufacturing industry, or where they work with the integrated automated environment. And then we have robots for various other military applications, for the coordinated, like covert applications, where you see, using the remote locations where your robots are working, where the enemy's positions are. You also have some drones sending you the data, right? Some people are remotely capturing those data from on their screens, and then letting the people on the ground or the soldiers know, what to do next and where to move. So those coordinated applications can be there. In fact, for mining, right? For locating the mines, right? And of course, the other military applications. And DARPA is the organization, if some of you would like to see, in US, they develop very high-end technologies. So firefighting, rescue operations, and the space robots, we all know about it. And then robot for assistive technologies, like somebody has developed the robot, like in case he's not able to use his hands. So robot is feeding this man here, and the signals can be picked up from the muscles or just from the interactive intuition with the external camera, like eyes movement or the neck movement can be programmed to give the various position to the actuator so that he can pick up the things from the plate and put into the mouth. And some robots for assistance, like for somebody to get out of the chair for some disabled persons. And then there are some new applications which are for rehabilitation, like uh, like muscle fatigue, or somebody want to tone up their body for some particular applications, maybe for somebody is getting trained on the military use of military equipment or something like that. So here is one application where like MIT has developed some robot, right, where they uh, put that device like or load that device around the limbs of the human being, and then there's a programmed motion and those limbs are moved in a coordinated way to provide the muscle strength or just to assist for rehabilitation. And then there are some other devices. So some of you can see this robotics for rehabilitation. This is a recently published review paper which talks about the various technologies developed across the globe by different people, which has got different things for people without limbs and for people to assist their weak limbs carry out the very heavy loads, like Rex. These kind of technologies are being developed for by DARPA for US military applications, where the soldier would be then able to lift or uh, pick a load of maybe 100 kilogram or something like that and go to any terrain. So the person will not feel load, but the charged batteries, they will actuate the various links. He will just the robot will just feel that the way the person is trying to move, but the entire load which is being carried out will be transmitted to the ground through the physical structure of the for this what we call exoskeleton, right? So these exoskeleton devices are the one where the backbone or the muscles of the human being will not experience the load which he's lifting up. So these are the devices which are being used for rehabilitation, for helping the older people whose muscles cannot support their own body, and of course to the other people who are kind of want to use it for some other applications like military, where they want to carry out the ammunitions or some ration or something like that to some inaccessible regions where the vehicle and other things cannot be moved out. And of course, the Zurich arm is also there for rehabilitation, for toning up the muscles for some athletes which use their shoulder or elbow quite frequently. And then digital surgery, I showed you the application of Da Vinci. So this is the Da Vinci, right? The Stanford robot in operation, right? This we have seen in the video. And of course, this is also the part of that video which I just shared with you earlier. And of course, entertainment industry, like all of us know, the Disney, they have used the robots of different kind shapes for in their amusement parks, right? And then Asimov is there. Like initially, it was developed as if there would be a market, very huge market to deploy these robots in place of the people may prefer to use these robots in place of their pets. But there is a different kind of interaction with the pets. So nonetheless, these are also the technologies. So Sony Abio is there. Then Sony Querio is there. Then personal robots, and then some cleaning robots. These are the devices. So there are many advantages of using the robot, and there are, of course, a couple of disadvantages of robots. And just to summarize in a single line, through one of the forum, like where I'm connected in LinkedIn, I get to know that all big shots, all those big industries, BMW, Chrysler, and then Google and IBM and all these big companies, they are now working together to develop some technologies where now they are kind of demarcating that what automation can support the best and where human being can support the best, right? When there is a tremendous input required from human being in terms of like the know-how is not previously known, there is no knowledge base, there is a the decision is to be made based upon the judgment, then humans are the best at it, right? AI technologies and all those, they can assist us, but they most of the time, right, they do not give us the foolproof, the results. Similarly, the automation assists us in reaching beyond our physical abilities, like the load carrying capacity or doing that operation continuously for longer hours. And then, just mentally somebody may burdened up if repeating those tasks for years and months together. Then some tasks which are nowadays being designed for human specialists to be executed, like we would always require a doctor to perform surgery using Da Vinci. Da Vinci will never be allowed to perform operation in isolation, right? So we always need an expert. We will give him best of the device. Those devices can be deployed at the strategic locations along the various major cities of the country, where some specialists, right, if required, they can operate upon those people without wasting much time. And similarly, we would have automation devices just to assist us, in terms of like experiencing the fatigue or going beyond the normal natural human capabilities. So all in all, like automation is the need. And if some of you are the budding technocrats or the people who are going to take up the technology in their careers, we would request that you venture into the development of these technologies, be good into your professions, like make teams, and you may give good ideas for others to develop the things, create some small ventures, but start some way or other. And there would be a day then, like we will have couple of things, like if you see Google search nowadays, not Google India, Google UK, and Google China, or Google CA, or google.com. You just think of something, right? It is already there in those developed nations, right? Some parts, some equipment, some medical device, some automation device, just think of it. But we are far behind those people because our people haven't started thinking in their line. So we need to just flood ourselves with number of ideas and put those forth for the next generations to use those. So with this, I thank you very much. So I'm open to some questions if they are there, and if the organizers would allow me to interact with you for a couple of minutes, so we can take some questions.
Yes, sir, definitely. We are enabling the option of unmuting the participants. So anybody who has any questions can ask, sir. Participants, if you have any question, you can ask.
I think students don't have any queries. So, Dr. Dwivedi, thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful presentation.
So, if everybody is still listening, will it be good if we show them what we developed with Seaboyd, like the video of that device, the ventilator?
Wait a second, sir. Let me check.
I have that with me.
Yes, sir. You can show if you have.
Okay. So let me share that video with all of you. Where is that share screen? Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is one of the device which recently we developed with the experts at PGI. Of course, like Dr. Saab and Dr. Virender Garg, Dr. Babita ma'am. So this is the one which we are still working on to give it some final shape. So let me play this. I think there is some other video. Let me see, where is it? Okay. Screen 2. Screen 2, screen 3, screen 1. So can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is just disassembled view. So this is a device, and of course, like there are a couple of others which we developed. So there was a smaller version of this also. Like this is the one which is the smaller version which we made just recently. So this is a device for medical supplies, for sending to the medical supplies to the isolation wards and communication with the uh, patients in the isolation wards. And then we have this device which is I showed you for ambu bag, which has got all the required medical parameters, and this weighs around 6-7 kilograms only. So, and of course we developed some devices which are the sanitizers. I think I can show here. This is the one which we developed. So these are the things which we developed, and there are some other projects which are still going on. So I was expecting some questions. Okay.
Students, if you have any query, then please ask our speaker.
If at all you come across any queries after the lecture also, you can mail us so that we can direct it to Dr. Dwivedi to answer your question.
Okay. Thank you very much for your patient listening. And of course, there are n number of things which cannot be covered in just 1 hour. So best of luck to all of you. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing such a beautiful presentation. And also you have shared so much ideas with the students, and hope this session will give all the students.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
And students, please fill the feedback form after this session. Thank you and have a nice day.